Xanımlar və cənablar, hörmətli forum iştirakçıları, hörmətli media nümayəndələri. Sizi Azərbaycan Respublikasının dövlət müstəqilliyinin 30-cu il dönümünə əsr olunmuş Azərbaycan Dövlət İqtisad Universiteti tərəfindən təşkil olunan Zəfər Yolu adlı iqtisadi forumun ikinci günündə bir daha salamlayırıq. 44 günlük vətən müharibəmizdə zəfər çalıb canından keçən bütün şəhidlərimizi bir dəqiqəlik sükutla yad edək. Allah rəhmət eləsin. Bəli, igid əskərlər üçün ölüm yox, şəhidlik zirvəsi var. Hörmətli forum iştirakçıları, maraqlı və müsbət təəssüratlarla yaddaşlarda qalacaq forumun ikinci günündəyik. Post-pandemiya dövründə elm və təhsil sistemində hansı dəyişikliklər baş verdi? Perspektivdə gözləntilər hansılardır? Bütün bu məsələlər forumun ikinci panelində geniş müzakirə edildi. İndi isə gənc tədqiqatçıların və tədqiqat mərkəzləri rəhbərlərinin SPRİNGER nəşriyyat şirkətinin iqtisadiyyat üzrə redaktə məsələləri direktoru Kristian Rausçerinlə görüşü başlayır. Gənc tədqiqatçıların və tədqiqat mərkəzlərinin rəhbərlərinin SPRİNGER nəşriyyat şirkətinin iqtisadiyyat üzrə redaktə məsələləri direktoru Kristian Rausçeri kürsüyə dəvət edirik. Alqışlarınızla.
Salam. That's about all. I'll speak in your language. And I was promised a group of young researchers here. So I'm happy to welcome all the young researchers and that we're all so young here. And yeah, let me start with my presentation here. I'm going to talk to you today about the impact of digitalization and of technology, what it changes in the publishing industry, but also specifically in scientific and academic publishing, and what it does for you as young researchers in that context. Yes, I gave my speech a title, Notorious, with a question mark and an exclamation mark. Notorious is a famous film by Alfred Hitchcock in 1946, and it's about spies, and Cary Grant is starring in it, and Ingrid Bergman is starring in it, and I thought that might attract you. I didn't know that so many people would come and be attracted by it. So Notorious is also what a good researcher should become. Yeah, he should be well known, he should be famous for what he's doing or she's doing, and yeah, so that's about the start of my talk. Let me give you a quick prologue. What do you expect from my talk? Yeah, I will start out with a bit of a presentation of what Springer is about, Springer Nature is about, but then I will talk about how technology makes content available, how you get read. Yeah, that's an important issue when you look at how many books, how many journal articles, how many book chapters are published every year. You need technology to find the right stuff. I will talk about support, how technology can support authors and readers in producing their articles, their books, their book chapters. And I will talk about decision-making, how the impact of technology, of digitalization, changes decision-making in academic publishing. And finally, that's why I hope I guess most of you are here, I will talk about what it means for you as young researchers, how you can take part in this industry, in this process, how you can make use of your findings in an efficient way so that you get published, and published in the right media, and published in the right places. All right, let's start on the journey. Here's a quick overview of the content I'm going to give to you. As I said, Springer Nature, my own program in Springer Business and Economics, and the elements I just told you about. Just to give you a picture of who I am, I'm the editorial director in Springer for books in the area of business management, economics, finance, and political science. I have a team of about 10 people who are spread all over the world, who come from various cultural backgrounds, and they publish with me about 500 books every year. Good. So, just to give you a short introduction into what Springer Nature does, that's an update. Springer Nature has about 3,700 scientific journals, and they include almost 8 million articles. We have currently 290,000 books in our program on Springer Link. That's close to 5 million chapters. We have about 33,000 proceedings volumes in our program, and that means almost 2 million conference papers that are published. And finally, we have an exclusive selection of 1,600, 1,700 major reference works. So that's big handbooks, that's encyclopedia, and they all have altogether accumulated more than 600,000 entries. Now, why I'm telling you this? There's this huge, huge competition for attention on the content that is produced. Yeah? Nobody, no human being can get an overview of that content. Yeah? That's extremely difficult. Even if you use advanced search technology, yeah? How can you decide what is relevant for you and what is important for you, right? And I think everyone has this issue. Now, in my own direct area in business and economics, the picture is already a little bit more consolidated. Yeah. So it's 236 journals that are published in the business and economics area. We have about 800 book series. These numbers are, by the way, not only Springer, but they include all the imprints in Springer Nature in our publishing group. So there is also Palgrave Macmillan, there is A-Press, and there is Springer. And we have more than 36,000 books in our program, with 400,000 book chapters. Behind each chapter, there's authors, there's brain work, yeah. And again, I'm not telling you about this just to brag about it or so, or to see how big we are. Yeah, Springer is one of the big publishers in the academic world, but there's other publishers around, and the big publishers like Elsevier, Routledge, Wiley, Springer, they make about 60% of the market, and almost half of the market is spread to many, many smaller publishers, publishers in local languages. So there's a big, big variety behind it. And that's something that needs to be appreciated as well. Yeah, so this is here not a speech about how big Springer is or how important or so. We're scaling our size for the service for our authors, but we're not bragging about that, right? Okay. So as I said before, my own portfolio, my team, we publish about 500 new books every year. That includes monographs, contributed volumes, textbooks, professional books, some handbooks, some reference books, and of course as well proceedings. And I'm very grateful that the proceedings from this conference, from this venue, will also be part of our conference publications. We have about 80 book series in business and economics in my field. And there are series that are more general, so we have textbook series, or we have book series for professionals, or there are book series for more specialized topics, so new technologies in finance, or information systems, or in operations research, or combinations of it, tutorials in operations research. What is the reason why we are publishing books in series? It helps to structure. It helps to structure and to build sort of a framework that you find the content, that you find the relevant books, and that the books support each other. The book series are also an important feature when it comes to accreditations, like that books are accepted in abstracting and indexing services. And that's where it gets important for you. Many institutions in many countries give credit to publications that are listed in Scopus or in the Web of Science. And so it's important to get published in a series that has this service connected to it. And for example, in Scopus, you can't submit individual books as a publisher, but you can submit book series. And in our own program, we're quite proud, we're quite successful. We have about 25 book series that have a Scopus acceptance already. And that's an asset. And it's helping us to win new interesting books. We're always on the lookout, we're always searching. The job of an editor is an acquisitions job, to win authors, to convince authors that it's worthwhile publishing with them, with us. And finally, the book series are also edited by eminent researchers, by people who are known in their communities. That's an asset for us. It's important. Yeah, and as well for the scholars who do the service, who edit the series, it's super interesting because they are confronted with proposals that come from the publisher. They see what's happening new in their discipline, in their area, and of course they can also help to promote their subject and their network and their community. I have a quite impressive number here to show. Last year in 2020, we encountered the usage of 136 million chapter downloads of our content in business and economics. That's an extremely high number when you compare it to what you're doing in print sales of a book, for example. Yeah, in 1 year, 136. It has a COVID aspect to it because we decided, Springer Nature decided last year, to go and make several hundred of our books publicly available for free for everyone, because education changed as we heard this morning, it changed to distance learning, and in order to support students and in order to support teaching, we made these books free of charge, accessible on our platform on Springer Link. And some of the books in my program had 5 million downloads or so, which would normally get, perhaps if they are successful, 100,000 downloads or so. There's a really multiplier in it. But you all experienced it. Yeah, you were reliant on resources that are electronically available and no longer physical books, printed books. In the row below, you will see a number of our book series and some outstanding titles. I spare you the details on that. As I said, we're a team of 10 editors. We're based in Heidelberg, in Wiesbaden, and in New York. It's an international team, so there are Americans, there's a Jamaican, there's a Polish lady, an Indian, Spanish, Greek, Chinese, and even Germans. And they all combine years and years of experience in academic publishing. And their role is to be partners of authors, of researchers, to help them. They are not knowing better. They have the PhDs in their field, but they are not the more clever ones or so, but they know publishing. Yeah? And I give you an example. I did a book with brilliant with brilliant researchers in scheduling, in mathematics. They wrote a wonderful book, 5 people together, a monographic book. And in the end, they forgot a conclusion. They forgot the last chapter of the book. And they proudly submitted the book to me, the manuscript, and I said, sorry, I still need something. Yeah, you don't need to be a mathematician to discover that the book needs a conclusion or an introduction or whatever is missing. Yeah, that's what somebody who's interested in the field and who's knowledgeable and experienced in academic publishing can help you. We can't improve your algorithms, we can't improve your methods or anything like that. And in that context, we're also agnostic in terms of methods, of approaches. Yeah, we want to publish quality, and I'm going to show you in my speech also how technology helps us to do that, to be not just looking at one individual method, one individual approach. So, how do you get read? And how does technology help you in that? Every book that we publish is published as a printed book. You can go to Amazon or to a bookshop and purchase a printed individual copy. It costs money. It's also usually quickly available. But apart from the print edition, what has become much, much more important is the digital product. It's the ebook. And there are different varieties of ebooks. So what we do is we have a process that is media neutral, and it creates PDFs, so you can read a book as a PDF in an electronic form. The PDF serves for the printed book, but we're also using different variants of what's called EPUB, so you can read it on your tablet, and you can scale the page. Nobody wants to scroll on a PDF page left, right, or so. If you have a small device, then your page count is simply different, and the ebook shows up, and the layout is created dynamically. And that's the easy part. That's the easy part of the transformation. to produce an ebook, everyone can do. You can do it on your computer. That's the simple thing. The more complex thing is the digitalization of the business model behind it. So what Springer did back in 2005 was that we built ebook collections. Now, an ebook collection is defined by a copyright year and by a discipline. So business management 2020 or 2021 is an ebook collection. Economics and finance is an ebook collection. Always a copyright year. And we're selling that ebook collection to libraries and also to professional markets, to corporations. Now, what's the difference? The difference is that an electronic product, an electronic ebook collection, can also be sold to groups of libraries. So the United University Libraries of Turkey could come and say, can I have a specific selection of ebook collections? And do I get a better price than if we come individually? Yes, we do. We do that. Yeah? And it allows for consortialization. Groups of libraries can access it. Why is that important? It's important because it helps us to disseminate, to get access. And even if we earn less money, we're a commercial publisher, but if we earn less money, we get a broader distribution. The second aspect is pricing. An ebook collection in Central Europe, say in Switzerland, has a different price than an ebook collection has in Africa or in Asia. Yeah? Pricing is according to the market. And finally, pricing is dependent on the number of users. Yeah? If an institution has 100,000 users, they get a cheaper price per user than if they are a small institution with 5,000. Yeah? The bill for the small institution is smaller, but it's more affordable for the larger groups. Yeah? The main driver behind it is we want to simplify a selection process. It's an all-inclusive model. And typically in a library, you have a limited budget. And this limited budget would mean you have to have a very thorough process to select. You spend time, precious time from professors, researchers, librarians to select individual books. You can make it much, much more efficient if you're choosing a selection and afterwards analyzing what has been used, which content has been used, was it worthwhile for the librarian to spend the money in it? And the pricing degradation is so effective that it's a process that has been extremely successful. For you as researchers, the benefit of it is that whatever we publish is available in a couple of thousand institutions around the world. And there's a simple rule: what you can't read can't have an impact. Yeah, if you wanna have an impact, the first thing is you must be available somewhere. Yeah. We have reacted also. The ebook collections is a while ago. This all-inclusive model is already available since 2005 and has become more and more accessible. Recently, we started to create smarter ebook packages, smaller selections where a librarian can actually select several titles out of a portfolio, have them available at the institution, and after a while, they can decide which ones they want to own and which ones they want to give back. An important aspect, again, always under the general topic, you need to be read if you want to have an impact, is open access. The open access development is something that took place independently from Springer, but Springer has taken an important stake in it. And just today I got the message from our CEO that we have now completed the first 1 million of open access articles in our company, in Springer, on Springer Link. 1 million open access articles. And open access, to be honest, yeah, it's not about the everyday people, that they can access the content, that they can read an article, a journal article on some specific topic. It is important that researchers, you, academics around the world, can access the content independently from the local budget of the librarian. Yeah? So open access is an important development, and Springer is embracing it very much. But in order to publish a journal article, yeah, it's still costly. And it's even more costly if you want to publish a complete book. Yeah, you're paying typically for a short book 7,000 euros, for a longer book 15,000, 13,000 euros as an open access fee. Yeah, that's the equivalent of what we would earn for a traditional book. But as an author, it's an aspect to consider. No one's paying that out of their own personal budgets. But I know senior scholars that basically say, the most important article that I'm publishing this year, I'll make open access. I pay for it. I find it in my budgets. I get the money from my university or from the library, but I make sure that it's published open access so that it's read, that it is distributed as widely as possible, because it's my most important piece of research. And another important aspect in that transition is large deals. In Germany, we had a big deal with Springer Nature and the Hochschulrektorenkonferenz, so the conference of the rectors of the universities. And they made a general deal with Springer Nature that included access to our journals that are usually subscription-based, and an option for researchers from their universities to publish open access without the fee. Yeah, the fee was part of the large deals. And these are large transformatory arrangements between the publishers and the libraries, so to speak, and the universities, to make research better accessible. A final point, in order to be read, so that somebody reads your article, understands your article, and can recommend it, can build their own research on it, you need to be found. And for that, metadata are important. We used to do that manually. So publishing editor, when establishing a new book in our systems, they were manually coding subject areas, disciplines, basically. They were coding keywords. They were giving all different kinds of metadata to make the content findable on the internet. Today, we're using technology for that. We're still doing the old stuff, but we're doing text mining. Yeah, so that an article, actually, we are using semantic technology to create a fingerprint of a chapter of an article, so that a search engine can find the article much more precisely, that you get better search results. And that helps that the right articles get into the hands of the researchers. And metadata get more and more context sensitive. Yeah, it's a difference if you talk about architecture in the context of Baku and this city and the many beautiful buildings you're constructing here. Or if you talk about architecture in software engineering. Yeah, a software system has an architecture. Or if you talk about enterprise architecture, it's context sensitive, and metadata are supporting that. A second aspect is how can technology support authors and editors of books? We're using a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence in Springer to make sense of our data. And last year we published our first book that was not written by a human being, but was written by a machine, by an algorithm. You see the cover of the book on the left side below. Yeah, it's a book on lithium-ionic batteries. And now, lithium-ionic batteries is perhaps not something that's interesting to people in economics, more on the technical side, but there's an incredible amount of research available. What the algorithm did was, first of all, it was structuring the content. So it was creating in a way, it was creating a table of contents of the research on lithium-ionic batteries. But there's, of course, different strands of research. Some talk about materials, yeah, the rare earths and stuff like that. Some research goes about upload and loading cycles and usage of these batteries. And there's many different areas. And finally, the algorithm was writing the book. And it's not a nice read, to be honest. Yeah, we're not proud about that. But what it does is basically, it's full of references, and it brings together the individual articles under a structure and cites them, and explains in the essentials and the commonalities of the individual research articles. So an interesting product came out. We published it as a book, but it could also be useful for a researcher just to get a review, or to get the review on his PhD topic, for example, to get it structured and analyzed. Yeah, there's the whole portfolio of Springer articles and books and chapters behind it, and the algorithm does a service for you. It helps you to understand what has been published in your field, and how you could build it into a big structure. Yeah, and that could be the basis. That could be the basis of a typical traditional PhD where you have a literature review. Yeah, you can't read all that has been published. Remember the numbers I showed you in the beginning. Another application of modern technology is auto-translation. We're partnering with a company called DeepL. They are specialized on context-driven translations. And you can use it. I think most of you have done it already. Gone to deepl.com, and you put in any language, you put in text, and it translates into another chosen language. Yeah. Now, the quality of that kind of translation is good, but it still needs a checking. But what we're aiming at is that we're not making available translations of our books, but that you can actually read a book in your language. Yeah, that's the future vision of it. At the moment, we are translating, so the author is still having a look at the translated book and making a check. And I'm showing you one example here. That's a German book on management, and beidhändige Führung has been translated into ambidextrous leadership. And in the future, you will identify your book that is of interest to you, or chapter of or an article in a journal, and you will be able to read it in one of the major languages, whatever is convenient for you. And a third part where technology plays a role is plagiarism checking. Again, important for authors. I assume nobody is an active plagiarizer, yeah? But publishing ethics is a more complicated problem. If you're an active researcher, you have a lot of material on your computer. And when you start to write, it may be that you're actually taking over stuff from other people, yeah? And technology can help you to detect that and then to identify the right things so that you're not committing against publishing ethics. We use the technology at Springer also when we get contributed volumes, and this is not a question of regional prejudices or anything like that, yeah? I had the case, one of my publishing editors, he's virtually checking every manuscript that he receives for publication against Authenticate, and he found someone who claimed to be associated or affiliated with the University of Munich, yeah? And this kind of affiliation was very, very unofficial, yeah? And he was a fraudster. He was a fraudster, basically. And you can only find these things when you put a check against what's published, what's available, yeah? And in that case, it was not just that somebody copied text from but somebody also impersonated someone else. So technology helps us in this context, and it's also available to you. What has all this to do with the way of decision-making in publishing? When a publishing editor or the editor-in-chief of a journal today makes a decision on, do I accept this proposal or not? Yeah? It used to be a commercial decision in the past. Yeah? Publishing a book is costly, and you try to calculate how many copies will you disseminate, how many copies will you sell, what will the libraries sell, what will individuals purchase, and you make a business case for that. From what I've told you before, this has changed, and we've gone back to the roots. Yeah, we're looking at what makes sense, what creates value in a discipline. And I'm starting with the middle part of the slide. The university can be compared to a pyramid. You have a lot of students that are at the beginning of their career. You have a medium number of researchers, and you have a few top scholars in every university that do very particular, very specific research. Now, if I look at my analytics, yeah, I would say, oh, here's content that has been downloaded many, many times. Most likely it's a textbook, a fundamental textbook, where many students went for it, yeah, and followed it. The numbers do not automatically say it's precious, it's important, it's valuable content. Yeah, we also need to cater for the few downloads from a few very specialized researchers. And that's what the business model, as I described it to you, makes possible. Because it's an all-inclusive and it's a comprehensive model. And we don't look at individual research methods, in individual approaches, in the sense that we say, oh, this and that approach is popular, that's why we publish it. We are looking at it really, does it make sense? Is it good? And that brings me to the first column here. We're using reviewers, academic reviewers, and we're relying on them. Finding suitable reviewers is something which you can do with experience or which you can do using algorithms again. Someone who has published in a field, you can find that reviewer. And if he's published with you, it's more likely that he is willing to help you out evaluating the next publication. And for the publishing editor, he still has to make a different decision. He's not a reviewer in that sense because he's not a researcher. He makes a decision from a portfolio manager's perspective. And how many textbooks in that discipline or in that specific topic do I want? Yeah? It's not a question of the quality, it's a question of a portfolio composition. This all leads to a different approach, a different philosophy. We're no longer, as a publishing company, we're no longer creating product. Of course it is creating a product. There's a physical book that you can hold in your hand. But the important thing is actually the transition into a service. Yeah? The library is buying the whole collection, and the collection in its completeness is a service to the readers, to the researchers that have access to it. And in a way, it's also a service to the authors, because you can't have an impact if you're not being read. Yeah, that's the pre-requirement of everything. And that's also the return for authors. Why do you write a book? Yeah, I'm asking that many of my authors. Why do you write a book? What's the point of it? And it's definitely not the financials. Yeah, you get a royalty, you get a remuneration for the service for what you do, but that's not the big driver. The big driver is the completeness of the model for the researcher. They are disseminating their findings. They are showing what they have thought, what they have found out, and what are the consequences of that. And that's making an impact. If you've done good research, then others will read it and will quote it and will build their research on it. Now I'm coming to the final part of where I was heading for, and that's what does it mean for young researchers, for researchers that are looking for publishing outlets. I can say that technology works for you. It's helping, as I had tried to explain, that readers find your work. The collective sales model, it supports this process. And you can focus on good content, on excellent content. But for you, if you start to think about publishing, you need to think strategically. You need to think about, in the first place, you need to think about what does your institution expect from you, right? It doesn't make a sense if you're a PhD student to start writing a monograph or a handbook or whatever if your institution doesn't give you credit on that. If your institution, and many institutions give you credit for journal articles in high-ranked journals. So if you're on the career path, if you're not yet tenured, what sense does it make to write a textbook? What sense does it make to write a book for professionals? What does it make to write a monograph or whatever, or to contribute to a contributive volume? Yeah? Think about what your institution wants for you. The second aspect is think about what your scientific community appreciates. If you're in political science, for example, if you're a researcher in that field, you get a lot of credit for writing a monograph. If you're a researcher in economics, you won't get that credit. Disciplines are different in that respect. Yeah? So your community appreciates different formats. And the third part is you can align to these expectations. That's the low-risk way. Or you can counteract it. You can contradict it and say, I'm trying to create my own business model and my own branding as a researcher. I know people in business management that don't follow the pure academic thinking. Yeah, they do publish journal articles from time to time, but they look also for industry cooperation. And for that, it helps them to have a book published from time to time, a professional book, yeah, with case studies. And it shows that the researcher, that the person at the university actually is in a close contact with the industry. And it's typically then case studies that are not second-hand, but are first-hand knowledge. Yeah? They are using a different model. They get money from consultancy then. They are consulting corporations still being employed by the university. That's what I try to tell you if you're trying to contradict the expectations. Yeah? The low-risk way, the secure way, the safe way is look at what your institution wants from you, look at what your community wants from you, and then try to go and publish in that field. Now, the thing is not as simple as that. So if you sit down and say, okay, I've made my decision, now I'm sitting down doing some research, I'm writing an article, and I'm submitting it to the best ranked journal in my field. I promise you, you will fail. This is not going to be successful. You need, again, to be more strategic about it. Point one, research is no longer a solitary act. Research is collaborative. Yeah? If you go, I mean, here, this venue is the ideal example for it. Yeah? You're meeting people who are doing research in a similar field. You go to conferences, you see what other people are doing, you're meeting them, you're making friends with them. You're going to the pub in the evening and have a beer or a glass of wine or a glass of tea or whatever. You're making friends and you start to collaborate and you do research together. And that's the way how you get into the system. Yeah? And you can do that on a local level, you can do that on a national level, you can do that on an international level, on a global level. You collaborate, you find people who work in the same area, on the same topics, and you then write and publish an article together. Much more likely to be successful than if you're sitting down in your ivory tower and doing it alone. And this has more aspects to it. It's about help. Yeah? If you can help your fellow researchers, they will help you. They will reciprocate. They will support you. And this is not about cohorts and networks. I'm not trying to say, please try to manipulate the system, but try to cooperate, try to collaborate, and you will get a broader basis for what your research is, what your research is for, and how it can have an impact in the world. And you also get corrections in the process. You might be on the wrong path with some of your findings. Your collaborators will detect it and will improve it. So my recommendation goes to learn from the best. Look at what senior scholars are doing. Yeah? They're always eager to learn. They network, they make friends, and they collaborate together. They're also, by the way, doing a lot of services to the community. And these services are organizing a conference or doing reviews. Yeah? And you're building up your experience in that way. So best way to start getting successful in article publishing is help as a reviewer. Because you're confronted with the latest research, and you can evaluate with your knowledge, you can evaluate what they're doing, but you're also seeing the tricks and tips what people are doing. Sorry. Good. I talked about being strategic in what you're proposing. Be aware that your counterpart is short of time, if it's an editor-in-chief or if it's a publishing editor in the company. Yeah, they have very little time, so be strategic. Present people with a concept, but also show what you already have. Yeah, with a journal article, you need to have a finished article when you submit it. But before, if you approach the editor-in-chief, talk about the concept, make him nosy, make him curious. The same with a book or a book chapter. Yeah, make your counterpart nosy, but respect that he's short of time. And don't overload people with information. And the final part, be reliable in giving feedback, and don't rush people to get feedback to you. And update on your progress regularly. And check in with your friends and collaborators also to prove that you're on the right track. And finally, what you need, after all, is good luck. Thank you.
Hörmətli forum iştirakçıları, indi isə sual-cavab sesiyamıza başlayırıq. Qeyd edək ki, bu sesiya üçün 3 sualın cavablandırılması nəzərdə tutulub. Mikrofonlara yaxınlaşıb, özünüzü təqdim edib sualı verə bilərsiniz. Buyurun. Buyurun.
Hi. First of all, I want to greet our esteemed guest and Mr. Rausçerin. My name is Akbar Askarov from Yeni. I'm Akbar Askarov from Yeni. Do you hear me?
Biraz ucadan eşidilmir.
Can you speak up a little, please?
Okay.
Mikrofonlar.
I am Akbar Askarov from Yeni. We have a talk about the research, innovation, and science and education. But I have a little bit confusing about the research and research environment. My question is about the research environment. For you, in your opinion, how we can improve or create a proper environment for research in university, especially among the fresh students of the university. And you mentioned that the university as a pyramid. You say that the university as a pyramid. For you, I want to know about what is the main stage of this pyramid of university. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I hope I got everything correctly. If not, I will ask you to repeat again. Yeah, the first step, I think, for a researcher really is to get access to the up-to-date research in your area, in your field. Yeah, and for that you need access. It's the role of your library to provide that to you. And I heard your minister speaking today in that context. Yeah, and they can do a certain part to create that environment. They can do that to allow latest research to be available to you as researchers. But also, what I mentioned earlier on is collaboration. And it's very common among researchers, and it's fully acceptable if you're asking somebody, a friend of yours, to provide you this and that article. The metadata allow you to search for stuff, and you will find information about the article that might be helpful to you, and about the research that is published. But you may not have access to it directly, and that's where you can ask others. You can ask an author if they are able to share with you. The author may share, and you can also ask other researchers. That's emphasizing that aspect that I said. Make friends, build on that, because your institution may not have everything available for you. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yes, thank you. The first stage.
And the second part of the question I didn't get acoustically.
Okay.
Please repeat.
You say that, I see the phrase in the monitor, that university as a pyramid. What is the main stage of this pyramid for researchers, and how we improve our environment for researchers, for fresh students? I mean, how we stimulate them in university, how we force them to make research.
Yes. It's really you have to know. It's an important aspect. What part in the life cycle of your development you are in? Yeah, there's a right time for every kind of scientific and research activity. And to start with, my recommendation is really start at the end with providing service to the community. Of course, you first you need to gain a certain knowledge in your discipline, but then really take it as an exercise to do services for the community. So do reviews for if you try to offer them to editors-in-chief, for example, of the articles, of the journals that you are publishing in, or to the publishing company. It gives you experience, yeah. And the first steps in your development, work together with your local group, and you will have a network here. Second step, work together with your national network. Build the network, and that's how research gets more profound. Don't be solitary.
Thank you.
Növbəti sual, next question. Təqdim eləyin özünüzü.
Əvvəla
Ucadan zəhmət olmasa mikrofona.
Əvvəla sizə xoş gəldim deyirəm. özümü təqdim edeyim. Unik kompozit materiallar elmi tədqiqat mərkəzinin rəhbəri, fizika elmləri doktoru professor Rövnək Rızayev. Elmin inkişaf tarixinə nəzər salanda elə dönəmlər olub ki, elm texnologiyaları qabaqlayıb, bəzi dönəmlərdə isə texnologiya elmi öz arxasınca sövq elətdirib. Bugünkü günümüzdə doğrudan da texnologiyalar gözümüz önündə çox yüksək sürətlə inkişaf edir. Mən bir məsələyə sizin münasibətinizi bilmək istəyirdim. Biz bəzən deməyək, bir çox hallarda elmi tədqiqatın nəticələrinə əsaslanan hansısa bir məqaləni yüksək impact faktor göstərisi olan məqalələrə dərc olmaq üçün göndəririk. Prosedur qaydalara uyğun olaraq bəzən bu məqalənin dərci 1 il, il yarım, bəzən 2 ilə yaxın müddət tələb edir prosedur qaydalara uyğun olaraq. Sizin də son bənddə ən axırda göstərdiyiniz kimi resenziyentin rəyinə tələsməyin və artıq məqalə dərc olunanda söylədiyim o texnologiyaların yüksək sürətli inkişaf fonunda artıq bu köhnəlmiş bir nəticə hesab olunur və yaxud da həmən dönəmdə başqa bir tədqiqatçı qrupunun o məsələyə səndən daha tez yanaşmasını müşahidə edirik.
Suala keçək.
Bu məsələnin həlli istiqamətində hansısa reformalar aparıla bilərmi, aparılırmı? Bu problemə sizin münasibətinizi, mövqeyinizi öyrənmək istəyərdim. Təşəkkür edirəm, çox sağ olun.
Okay, thank you. That's really a very good question, and it's at the bottom of my heart also. I know that review processes can be a pain, and that it can take ages, and you are, in the end, when you're publishing the results, it's outdated already. That is a fact that happens in the traditional ways. Yeah. It's a decision you have to make. It's a decision you have to make if your publication should count for credits in your institution, and if you want to get these credits from a high-ranked journal that is high up in the web of knowledge and on Scopus, etc. It gives you maximum credit. You will have to buy the disadvantage that actually your content is published with a delay, because the whole principle of how universities reward researchers leads to a congestion in the workflow in some journals. Alternatives to that is you can, and we are also experimenting with different workflows so that you make something like public review. So you publish an article and it gets reviewed after, you publish it after an initial screening, which is rather fast by some experts, and then the peer reviewing takes place live, yeah, after publication. Yeah, that's not how the traditional journals are operating, but it's one option of an outlet for you. You have to look at how your institution gives you credit for such a publication. Depends on the individual journal. If it is using open reviewing, public reviewing processes, then this is a possible way to do. Another way to deal with it could be books. Books have a much faster review cycle than journal articles have. Again, it's a question: does it give you the credit that you need for your work? Yeah. So it's really, in my eyes, sorry if I put it that blankly, it's a business decision on your side that you have to make. Did I answer your question?
Teşekkür ederim. Çok sağ olun. Təşəkkür edirik cənab Rausçer. İndi isə cənab Rausçerin təltif edilməsi üçün forumun sədri, Unikin rektoru Ədalət müəllimdən səhnəyə buyurmasını rica edəcəyik. Ədalət müəllim, buyurun. Alqışlarınız. Gənc tədqiqatçıların və tədqiqat mərkəzlərinin rəhbərlərinin SPRİNGER nəşriyyat şirkətinin iqtisadiyyat üzrə redaktə məsələləri direktoru Kristian Rausçerin təltif edilir. Alqışlarınızı rica edirik. Əsirgəməyiniz. Təşəkkür edirik. Hörmətli görüş iştirakçıları, Kristian Rausçerlə görüşümüz yekunlaşdı. Hörmətli cənab Rausçerə və iştirakçılara gəldiyiniz üçün təşəkkür edirik. Qeyd edək ki, 3 gün davam edəcək forumda olan bütün panelləri və görüşləri Yeni sosial şəbəkə hesablarından canlı yayım vasitəsilə də izləyə bilərsiniz. Bir daha təşəkkürlər.